You're listening to Hysteria, the podcast that is still down the Kate Middleton rabbit hole. Right? That was a double.
Obviously. I mean, who even knows at this point, Erin? What can we trust? Even, what is it? Some of the biggest news outlets in Europe are now saying that the palace is no longer a reliable source of information. I feel like that was probably true for a while. But who can we trust?
I don't know, the Catholic Church? All right, let's get into some news headlines. The Ohio Republican Senate primary occurred. Occurred is not an action verb, but I feel like the primary was not an action. It was a thing that just happened. The winner of the Ohio Republican Senate primary is a certified crazy man.
Total nut.
Absolute crazy man named Bernie Moreno, former used car salesman. I'm not making that up. Used car salesman who's like, you know what? I've got an agenda to sell you.
It's my time to shine.
Yes, exactly. He was endorsed by Donald Trump. He beat out two more establishment Ohio Republicans, Matt Dolan and Frank LaRose. Matt Dolan is a state senator. Frank LaRose, the Secretary of State, who had spent the last couple of years just really lighting his reputation on fire by trying to undermine democracy in the state of Ohio. He was sort of like the front man in fighting against the abortion ballot measure last year. A very fuck around, find out kind of political story. Frank LaRose, he's... People don't like him anymore. People don't like him. Bernie Moreno got more votes than the next two candidates combined. He got 50.45%. Not sure where it's settled at this point. I'm sure it's going to move a little bit as they count absentee ballots. But yeah, it was supposed to be a close race. It was not a close race.
Wow. So I guess the pundits that were saying the race was a toss-up, not exactly on the money.
Yeah, and I also want to draw attention to the fact that state level polling is like not super, we don't have it down. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like up in the run up to the primary, it was, yes, supposed to be neck and neck between Moreno and the two other establishment candidates. And it just wasn't. The race was called like an hour after the polls closed on Tuesday night. And it was very clear. Now, Moreno winning is the best possible outcome for Democrats who definitely want to hang on to Sherrod Brown's seat. Nicest guy in the Senate, I've heard.
Nicest guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you know him.
I've met him. I don't know him, but I've met him.
He's a really nice guy.
Very friendly.
Yeah, we need to hang on to that seat. And I think that the likelihood that we will hang on to it as Democrats is increased by the fact that the craziest possible nominee is moving on to the general election. But at the same time, the craziest possible nominee is moving on to the general election. So
right. We never know. I mean, you assume and you hope that it helps Sherrod Brown because this guy is just so extreme. I mean, he's like absolutely 100% pro-life with no exceptions, supports a national abortion ban. Like his positions are pretty extreme on things that most people aren't feeling so extreme on. But like, also, Erin, why do they keep just nominating deeply bad people? Like just deeply bad. Moreno, I was, of course, as we do, go down a little Google hole and see, well, they're bad, but how bad? Here's how bad. Moreno refused to pay his employees the overtime they'd earned, deliberately shredding evidence he was legally required to keep to get out of paying them, and was found liable for wage theft by a jury, forcing him to pay over $400,000 in damages to employees. Erin, does he sound like anyone you know? Who doesn't like to pay their employees and tries to scam out on people?
I mean, could be a lot of people, but I think you're referring, I think I know who you're referring to.
Donald J., the man who can't pay his bond.
Yeah, the man who can't find a friend to help him pay his bond at this point. I mean, I'm sure that there are some phone calls happening as we speak, some friend-making phone calls perhaps overseas, but we'll see how that all shakes out. Yeah, and I think right now it's important to note that Republicans, as difficult as it is for them to stop talking about abortion when it is a losing issue for them, are now kind of trying to whitewash their histories on abortion. And Moreno, you know, again, like you said, supports a no exceptions abortion ban, but now is saying that actually he supports a 15-week abortion ban. I just want to say, 15 weeks, first of all, we've talked about on the show, arbitrary totally. Cutoff. Second of all, I think that people who have been pregnant, especially recently pregnant, are very aware of the fact that with pregnancy, something can go wrong literally at any time. Something catastrophic. And it sucks because like when you're in pregnancy, you're just like anxious for 9 months. It is not it's not a soft focus stroll through a lavender field. It is very filled with anxiety because every single time you go to the doctor, they could find something wrong and it could be like, oh, your blood pressure is elevated. We got to get you into the hospital. Save your life. Get your baby out now. Oh, there's something wrong with the structure of your baby's internal organs there that is incompatible with life. There's something going on with the baby's brain. There's something going on with the baby's skeletal system. These are things that you cannot know until you hit like 20 weeks plus. Right? So 15 weeks, like you're a 24-week pregnant person. You go in for a growth scan and they find something catastrophically wrong. Under a 15-week ban, it doesn't matter where you live. Like you're just going to have to carry that non-viable fetus until you give birth to it at term, have to go through childbirth and then watch your baby die. Like that's what a 15-week ban is. And I refuse to allow or give any space to Republicans who are trying to imply that that is some kind of moderate position. It is fucking creepy that the government wants to interfere with that decision at all. Like
it's also just based on this deranged premise that they hold that women are just rolling around, waking up one morning being like, you know what? I've had enough of this pregnancy. I'm 20 weeks pregnant. I'm just going to go get an abortion. Like it is the most profoundly corrupt and cynical and disgusting foundation for the thoughts that they want to make policy.
I just want to know, what do they think happens with a late-term abortion? How do they think the baby comes out? Because it doesn't get magicked out of there. You still have to deliver the child. Right. So, like, do they think that you're like, you know what? I don't want to be pregnant anymore, but I definitely want to go through childbirth and I don't want to have a baby on the other side. Worst of both worlds. Totally. Please give it to me. And then what doctor in their right mind would be like, this seems like something that a sane person is doing. I will aid I'm going to do this for you. It is like just the government, most doctors in almost every discipline are capable of collaborating with their patients and making ethical decisions based on guidelines set by their professional organizations and ethics set out by the profession of being a physician. So, like, why is the government and a bunch of guys who couldn't find the clitoris with a map and a flashlight, why are a bunch of those guys making rules about when and anyway, Bernie Moreno, used car salesman, could be a senator who tips the balance, makes it so it's impossible for, if Joe Biden gets reelected, make it so it's pretty much impossible for him to get anybody appointed to federal judgeships. Like, Ohio, we know that you got it in you.
You have it in you.
You've had it in you for like, you've been voting like champions for like a year. And I think that most of the champion voters were not, voting in the Republican primary because it's a closed primary in Ohio. Right. We really need you to make sure that it doesn't get just stunk up this fall.
Please.
Give Trump voters wrong directions to the polls. Tell them that spread misinformation. No, I'm just kidding. But it's really important for Ohio voters to prove that they are who we know that they can be and not let this guy join the Senate.
Protect abortion.
Protect abortion. Also protect the Senate.
That too.
Alyssa.
All the above.
The Senate used to be like the respectable one where they'd look down on the House and be like, look at these yahoos.
Look at these shenanigans.
Yeah. And the shenanigans have spread to the upper chamber.
They're contagious.
Yes, exactly. They've got a case of the shenanigans and it's spreading. But don't let Bernie Moreno in. Okay, let's talk a little bit. Oh, speaking of abortion.
Oh, boy.
Okay, so next Tuesday, it's already that time of year.
Guess so. Where you sit on pins and needles waiting for SCOTUS.
There is not a anti-anxiety medication strong enough.
No.
Okay. So next Tuesday, the Supreme Court is slated to hear the Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine, a made-up organization. Just want to, every time we talk about it, it's a made-up organization.
Yeah.
The Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine versus the FDA, which is trying to stop the FDA's approval of the use of Mifepristone, which, as our listeners know, is the first drug typically used in the U.S. during a medication abortion. So with that case, just, arguments are about to be heard. It's coming up. Guttmacher Institute has reaffirmed that Americans are very dependent on abortion drugs and they are more popular than ever. Mm-hmm. And you would think that if they were that dangerous, there would just be women dying left and right from abortion drugs. There is not, because they are safer than Tylenol. But anyway, new research released this week revealed that 2/3 of abortions in the U.S. are done via medication. Now, this information that we have is only abortions that took place within the medical system that are reported to, information gathering entities like Guttmacher, which, like, if you live in Texas and you got abortion pills by mail, you're not part of this stat. Right. So it is probably much more than the 63% of all abortions that are being performed using medication. It's a 10% increase from 2020. Alyssa, what do you make of this pair of stories? Supreme Court about to hear the Mifepristone challenge.
Erin.
Yeah.
It's all hanging in the balance. That's how it feels. It's all hanging in the balance. Every vote we have to cast matters. Just does. Every single one.
Yeah. I mean, if medication abortion becomes illegal or becomes more difficult to obtain, in other countries, there's another way to do a medication abortion that it still works, but it's like less effective. I don't know. Do you think that anti-choice people now are just trying to like inconvenience women so much that they're like, I'll just stay pregnant.
I'm crying uncle. I'll have babies. No, it's like, Erin, we've always said, as long as we've known each other, as long as you've been writing about this, they were always going to come for the medication abortion because they can't make theater of it. They love protesting clinics. And if people don't have to go to clinics for abortions, they don't get the theater that they're hoping for. And, right now, 40% of facilities known to provide abortion care offered only medication abortion. And so these people are like, this is their final frontier. It's like their fucking manifest destiny. They will not stop. And it's all bad faith. It's all, it's really depressing.
Yeah, they don't have a place to protest in front of because there's too many places that people can get the abortion pill. Like in 2021, the FDA lifted the requirement that the first dose of the abortion pill be administered in person, which was like, so I had an abortion that way. And you literally, prior to 2021, and you literally were just at the doctor and they like hand you the pills and they're like, all right, take them. And then you just take them and then you go home and you take the other ones. And like, I remember thinking like, this is so weird. I have like never ever been prescribed anything before in my life where they're like, you got to take it now in front of me. It was
right in front of me. Let me see you take it.
It was really like patronizing, but they were just following FDA requirements. But it was like, okay, this is a weird enough experience.
Well, it's literally how medicine was administered. If you watch, do you remember the movie Girl Interrupted?
Yes.
Remember, they all go up to the window. You have to take the medicine. You show underneath your tongue, make sure it's, you took it all. And then you go on. Literally how I administer medicine to my cats. But no, that is, and in that case, they're just doing it so they can, because it's not because they don't trust you. It's what they have to do to be able to get you the medicine. But
now you can get it from a pharmacy.
Yeah, and just go home.
Yeah,
put your sweats on, get ready.
Get it mailed to you. Even if you live in a state where it is not legal, you can get it mailed to you, and there are ways to do that. But yeah, I mean, this is like 2/3 of abortions, and it also allows the people who choose this to do it within the privacy of their own home.
Right.
Like,
as you should be able to.
Yeah. Like, what if you could get your appendix out by just like taking a pill that would dissolve your appendix? Would people be like, no, I want to go to the doctor? And
no.
I mean, there are benefits to surgical abortion, and in some cases it's more appropriate than medication abortion. But I'm just saying, like, given the option, wouldn't you prefer to just like do it at home in private with your hot water bottle and your Netflix queue and like
100%.
Yeah. So I'm going to be waiting with bated breath for this dumb fucking argument in front of the Supreme Court where facts don't matter. That's one thing I would want to point out. There's going to be a bunch of medical falsehoods spouted before the Supreme Court, but facts don't matter to the Supreme Court because nobody can hold them accountable because the geniuses who made our country up did not build in any accountability for the Supreme Court into the Constitution because they just assumed people would be good.
Yeah.
Idiots.
Yikes.
Bunch
really
of
paying the price now.
Maybe it wasn't a good idea, guys. Okay, so Alyssa, we've got a story of a conscience clause that ends well. Can you fill us in? Yeah, well-ish. Okay.
Well-ish. Because here's the thing, it's funny. The news is so bad, Erin, that when you read a story that has like a positive outcome, you're like, that was great. And then you think about it. So
it's like when somebody gets injured at work and doesn't have insurance and it's like they have like $150,000 in medical bills. And so a GoFundMe comes and saves them.
Exactly.
And you're like, okay, but like they shouldn't have had to have that.
They shouldn't have had to. They shouldn't have had to endure the trauma and stress of not knowing how help was going to come. Like they are just reliant on the good people in their network to help them out, which is sort of what's going on here. So a woman in Minnesota who was denied emergency contraception has won her appeal. Earlier this week, yes, the pharmacist denied her prescription due to personal reasons in 2019. This was deemed discrimination under the state's Human Rights Act. Now, while this is great news that she won her appeal, it shouldn't have happened in the first place. And she won her appeal, but what she wanted was Plan B 5 years ago. That is the bottom line. And the interesting thing about this, which I couldn't really find a lot of information on, but part of the conscience clause is that it is largely incumbent upon employers to make sure that, say, if a pharmacist does not want to administer Mifepristone, there is for ethical or religious reasons, there is someone on standby who can do it. That was not the case in this instance. And so, I just wanted to flag this story because, according to Guttmacher, over 21 bills were introduced in state houses in 2023. Among the most restrictive, a new Montana law, because it was passed, provides extreme legal protections to healthcare practitioners who want to refuse prescriptions for medical marijuana, medically assisted death, gender-affirming care, reproductive health care, or basically anything that doesn't jive with their ethical beliefs. Okay,
question. If I don't think that old men should be fucking, can I refuse to administer Viagra? Look, old sperm is very dangerous. Can I just say that? Women who become impregnated with the sperm of men over 35 have a heightened risk of preeclampsia and several other complications of pregnancy because of the old sperm.
Well, you know what?
I'm Erin? Opposed.
I would love to get into this because I would love for us to be able to do a little test case to find someone who is willing to say that and see what happens.
That sounds like an old school Ruth Bader Ginsburg style legal mamba. Because a lot of her cases when she was a civil rights attorney for the ACLU, she would find men that had been wronged by gender-specific laws, and she would bring them as plaintiffs. Which, so let's find a guy who wants to have a boner enough to get a prescription, but not so badly that he's going to be really, really upset when he isn't allowed to take his prescription home.
Right.
That's our plaintiff. It's going to be weird. America's going to be thinking about it.
It's going to be weird, but let's get into it.
America's going to be thinking about his dick a lot, but as long as he's secure in himself, let's see it.
Good for the goose is good for the gander.
I'm frankly tired of talking about uteruses when it comes to laws governing reproductive organs. I want a cock case. I want a case that focuses on the sperm. I want to talk about that because dicks are funny and uteruses are dangerous. So
apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently. Okay. So yeah, but everyone should check out. This was interesting because I couldn't sleep last night, hot flash. And so I started trying to find out all the states' conscience clauses, like because it's not just a blanket law, like there are different versions of it, but it is extremely hard to find a state that has no semblance of a conscience clause. So I encourage people to check out their state constitutions and see what's in there, because it is, the list is really, really fucking long.
We need to start our own religion. I'm just going to go ahead and say it.
We've had this talk before. Let's get into it.
But I'm gonna bring it up again. Because I keep thinking about it. And I feel like when I was actually religious, like a practicing Catholic, I believed less strongly in the fact that I was like eating Jesus's meat when I was like having communion. I believed in that less strongly. I was kind of like most Catholics. I was like, yeah, transubstantiation, sure. It's literally his like body and blood. That's fine. I don't know. I'm eating his rump roast of Christ, whatever. I believed in that. I just didn't think about it too much, but I was like, sure. I believed in that less strongly than I believe that it is not the government's business to interfere with people's choices when it comes to their medical decisions. Like, I believe in that so much more strongly than I think I ever believed in God. So why don't we can we make it a church?
Let's do it.
I mean, the church, what is it? Church of Satan?
I was going to say, we have found some fun churches online that we wouldn't mind being adjacent.
It's fun, but it will get you run out of a small town if you're wearing Church of Satan memorabilia. Although those people are super funny, and I love what they're doing in Iowa.
Enjoy yourselves.
Enjoy yourselves. But no, I feel like there are people that have sincerely held beliefs that don't rely on the belief in a supernatural being. So like, why does believing in a supernatural being mean that your belief matters more than mine? Like,
exactly.
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. But again, facts don't matter in front of the Supreme Court because
not a lot of the time.
No, because there's no accountability. Olivia Rodrigo, somebody who Caroline chastised me for calling a nice young lady several times.
Why? Isn't she?
She is a nice young lady.
Is she not a nice young lady?
Because it makes me sound old. But I think talking about Olivia Rodrigo at my age makes me sound old. It was like when middle-aged people talked about Fiona Apple back in the 90s, when you're like, leave Fiona to us. The people,
let us have her.
Let us have her. We're not trying to take Olivia Rodrigo away from anybody. I'm just going to say that. I think Olivia Rodrigo, what a great pop star. I'm so glad little girls and boys have her to look up to. I think she's amazing. She was dispensing emergency contraception on her tour and condoms at her tour stops. And has been speaking out about reproductive health access for literally years. Like you can find clips of her like from a few years ago when she was like, I think legally a child talking about this stuff. Really like cool, gutsy saying that, and her tour is called Guts. And talking about issues that other pop stars are not as outspoken about. And she's just like fucking awesome. But she was handing out condoms and Plan B at shows. And she ran afoul of some anti-choice advocates when she did it in St. Louis. Missouri has a near total abortion ban, which has nothing to do with Plan B because Plan B is not an abortifacient. It's emergency contraception. People got mad at her, and so now she is not doing it anymore.
Though I feel like mostly they just scared the shit out of her managers, and now they're like, girl, can you please? We can't take the people coming into our DMs. Can we just not do this?
Yeah. It's disappointing though, because I feel like somebody like the Olivia Rodrigo machine, all the people around her and herself and whatever, everybody who makes the magic happen. I think it's a powerful enough machine that they should just be like, we're still going to fucking
fuck off.
Sue us, guys. Do
Logan Roy, fuck off.
Yeah.
But also, Erin, I just feel like these people just keep telling on themselves, right? They're like, no abortion. Abortion's killing, blah, blah, blah. But then they also don't want to give you any way to just not get pregnant.
Yeah. I mean, They want us to not have any way to not get pregnant, except encourage young men to be complete shitheads so that women don't want to have sex with them anymore. Which is great. Actually, I think it's turning out to be great birth control. The birth rate among teenagers in the U.S. and among women in their 20s is falling and has been falling for quite some time. I actually think the only demographic where it's rising are women over 35 and women over 40. Because who wants to let a guy under 30 knock him up? Sounds terrible. But I think, I wish that I totally understand why somebody wouldn't want to necessarily engage with like a legal fight over this sort of thing. But I kind of am like, can I just be like the devil cartoon on the shoulder of the
can you and I just show up with a rogue tent and pitch a little tent?
Keep giving it away. Do it. Keep doing it. Do it. What are they going to do? Sue you? They're right. They don't even have enough money yet left to donate to Donald Trump. His donations are like so in the tank because everybody is completely tapped out. They have? I mean,
it's what happens when you use all your money for your legal fees.
Eventually, Leonard Leo is going to run out of money. Just keep letting his people sue you. Come on.
Totally.
Future fucking guy, Leonard Leo.
Absolutely.
I did want to talk about the Nickelodeon documentary really quickly.
Yes. Oh, Erin, I have to tell you, when we were texting about this yesterday, I was like, I don't know if I have it in me. And then I watched the whole thing.
So for those of you who haven't been on the corner of TikTok that I am somehow on, the first few episodes of a new docuseries about Nickelodeon and the quote unquote the dark side of children's TV. It's called Quiet on Set, which is a great title.
Totally great title.
I was thinking about it all day yesterday. It is like the perfect title. It premiered on Sunday, and it tells the story of how one particularly fucked up showrunner that shaped children's entertainment throughout the Y2K and early 2000s era, named Dan Schneider, really fucked up a lot of kids' lives.
Totally. And adult women.
And adult women's lives. Yeah, he was just a terrible, terrible person who was basically given a blank check by Nickelodeon because he kept making hits.
Yep.
He kept making hits. And there were at one point 3 different pedophiles or people with 3 different pedophiles employed.
Yeah, 2 pedophiles and 1 adjacency.
Okay. 2 pedophiles and 1 pedophile adjacent person employed by Nickelodeon at around the same time. These kids are supposed to be protected by laws that mandate that their parents be with them all the time, but the production sort of flouted the laws and just allowed kids to be alone with adults that they shouldn't have been alone with. Oh my God, Alyssa.
Erin, okay, so on our text chain yesterday, I think Caroline was saying don't watch it before bed. Of course, I watched it before bed. What the fuck? So the thing that I thought was so interesting about this is that I am old enough that I kind of miss Nickelodeon. You know what I mean? Like so many of these stories I think happened around between 2000 and 2004. And I was like working on the Kerry campaign by then. So the only thing I really remembered is that Michelle Obama had appeared on one of the shows. I think she'd been on iCarly when we were in the White House. But watching this, I didn't know anything. I knew who Amanda Bynes was. Like I knew who people were. I couldn't believe, Erin, there was a character on one of the shows called Lil Fetus.
Yeah.
What?
Lil Fetus, a rapper. Okay, so this Dan Schneider, the documentary does a great job of kind of showcasing the scope. Because it wasn't just that like there were children who were preyed on. Like there was this guy who was like a titular character in Drake Bell, who was like repeatedly victimized by a person who has been largely protected by the Hollywood establishment. And it was just like really, really heartbreaking. So it talked about the sexual victimization of children. But it also talked about like the just rampant sexism on display. Rather than paying 2 female writers, individual writers, salaries, he forced them to work as writing partners, which is a thing that can happen if you have like a long-term writing partner in Hollywood and you get hired on a show as like a package deal. And so you don't get paid as if you were just like an individual writer. You're a writing team. It's kind of weird, but it's like a way for a show to get more people on a writing staff without having to pay the rate of like.
But in this case, they only made the women do that.
They only made the women do that.
The men were all paid as individuals, and the women had been on there for seasons. And what the fuck?
And one of the women who was on the team, like, endangered her entire writing career by taking legal action against the show when she found this out. And the WGA was like, whoa, they can't do this. Like, it just like, she hoped that people would learn from this, and then they didn't. And then also Dan Schneider was like racist against
racist.
All like there was this adult who used to be a child actor on All That, which I couldn't watch because where I lived, we couldn't get cable TV because it was too rural. But when we went to my cousin's house, we would watch All That. And he was talking about how he was always being put in like leotards.
Yes. And that looked like, and one of the leotards and one of the characters he played, each shoulder had like a penis with balls.
Like, it was a nose, but it looked like a penis.
But that's not what it looked like. Yeah. I mean, it was this. I think that I did not realize until I watched this documentary by Mary Robertson, who also did the Britney docs that we all loved. That how sexually explicit, like the coded sort of sexual innuendo in so many of the shows and skits. It was disgusting.
Yeah, it was really gross. And, you know, I remember being a kid and seeing like Ren and Stimpy sometimes and being like, this is a weird show. Well, Ren and Stimpy was probably like the healthiest thing.
Like the Jetsons by comparison.
It was Leave It to Beaver of the Nickelodeon universe. And it's
the thing that was so, I think, that made me so sad, I guess, is how Dan Schneider and Brian Peck, you know, maniac, how they drove wedges between the child stars and their families, how they worked to help them get emancipated so that they could then control them. And Drake Bell, the scene you and I were talking about this morning, the scene where his father talks about finding out what had been happening to him was like gut-wrenching beyond.
Yeah, Drake Bell's parents were divorced and his father had been his manager. And when his father tried to interfere with Brian's creepy interest in Drake, Brian interfered in his relationship with his father. And like, it just is so fucked up. Also, can I just say this? Let me couch it by saying, this is my opinion.
Okay.
Throw Drake Bell's mom in jail. Holy shit. Throw her in jail. Like, uncool. She was like letting this kid, her child, like not be driven home after auditions and just stay at Brian's house.
Yeah, because she didn't want to make the drive. Because it was like Orange County. An hour. Yeah.
Oh my God.
That poor kid. I mean, the person, because Brian Peck had driven a wedge at that time between Drake and his father, it was actually Drake's girlfriend's mom who realized what was wrong. Sussed out what was happening. And it took her like a minute.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. Drake Bell's mom, straight to jail. Directly to jail.
Not a fan.
The documentary is a heavy watch.
But it's excellent.
I would recommend anybody who was a kid during the 90s or who has a kid and is like, you know, thinking about what media you want your kid to watch. I think that it's just or if you have a kid and you're like, I think my kid wants to act. No.
Record scratch. Watch this first.
No. Don't do it.